up, people of the internet? It is Dave, it is Duncan back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. And for this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new release from UK alternative metal band Loathe Is Noise. The band's new album, To Live in a Different Way, will be released on February 14th via Century Media Records.
Or as I like to call that day, Shagging Day. Is that just me?
No, not at all. No. Twinsies. Loathe Is Noise began its journey in 2021 as a collaboration between Humphrey, that's Cameron Humphrey, and former guitarist Tom Mellon, who recently left the band to explore other musical endeavours, balancing the ethereal and intense. While sonic signposts include modern-day shoegaze as well as the likes of Glassjaw and Deftones, the band's 2022 EP Euphoria, Where Were You?, released on Fever 333 frontman Jason Butler's 333 Records crew, pointed towards a soul-crushing sonic heartache all their own. A string of singles led to the band inking with Century Media and beginning work on their debut album. Speaking of the album, vocalist Cam Humphrey says, To Live in a Different Way is a story of a kid from Bolton trying to understand the world he lives in. It's 11 tracks full of love, heartache and dream-soaked melody. I believe we've created something special. We made a conscious decision to make the record feel like a live band, mistakes included, says Cam. In an era where perfection is heavily favoured, we wanted to do the complete opposite and dive headfirst into creating something our idols would have set out to create. To Live in a Different Way is that coming-of-age album for Loathe Is Noise. We put so much effort into this record that the band almost broke up, says Cam. It was the middle of winter, it was freezing and it was raining. In spite of that, we created a positive, cathartic record at one of the darkest times in our lives. My goal when we started Loathe Is Noise was to make some change in the alternative space. It's taken us 3 years to create a piece of art that could do that, and we've finally gotten there with this record too. The album was co-produced by the band with engineer Kel Pynchon and mixed by John Markson, who has worked with Drug Church, Drain, and The Story So Far. So, we've been on the Loathe Is Noise trail for a little while. Saw the band back in 2023.
Couldn't remember seeing them.
Yeah, supporting Pale Dust.
That was one of those kind of, this name rings a bell.
Yeah.
Where were they? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, saw them in Glasgow. And then sometime after that, we started to kind of hear little snippets. We reacted to a couple of singles. We've had now 5 singles released from the album. And I must admit, like my expectations were starting to kind of creep up a little bit with this one. Certainly some of the singles had some like really like kind of outstanding moments on what we'd heard so far. So like I was starting to get like, okay, I'm excited to hear this album in its entirety. So what do we think? How did you get on with To Live in a Different Way, Duncan?
So I'm going to get this out the way at the start, right?
Oh.
And this is not a dig at the band. It's not a dig at the record label. But it might be a dig at the way the album has been consumed. And I will stress this right now. I've verified with Dave. Dave had the same experience I did. This was given to us as a stream. Some record labels and PR companies will do that. I'm not entirely sure what has went wrong with the upload, but someone in the PR company, if they have a chance, they want to listen back through, the audio quality is not the best. And we know this because both myself and Dave have pre-releases of the album and can listen to, on our devices, on MP3s or computers or whatever, we can listen to those pre-release versions where everything sounds crisp and clean as a bell. And in this one, tinny drums, which I just can't abide at all. The high end is just all jittery and stuttery and not great. But cutting through that and getting to the heart of the music. Loathe Is Noise is one of these bands where I'm going to use Duncan's phrase. Take a shot right now. There's a whole lot of love here, Dave. There's a whole lot to love here. I am also going to say I have some negatives, and I'm going to get to that at the end, and it comes from a place of love, which is noise, apparently. Right. So we had heard 5 songs, and of the 5 songs we had heard, what was interesting was our conversations afterwards were linking to bands that the press statement is pretty much said, did you say Glassjaw? You were right. Did you say Deftones? You were right. Did you talk about 90s alternative? Oh, guess what? You were right.
Yep.
And I'm like, pat myself on the back. The old dog still got it. I still do this shit. So at their core, they're a band that clearly wear their influences on their sleeves. In a great way, though. Like, once again, it's taken... Like, when Glassjaw came out, the amount of bands within 1 year that had that wobbly vocal line got nauseating. Like, the amount of, like, pop-up, like, Timu bought fucking Daryl Palumbo vocals. Wishlist, fucking Palumbo vocals that appeared were just fucking nauseating. They don't have that, and a lot of that has to come from the fact that Cameron Humphrey's vocals are fucking incredible, and we'll take a bit of time to talk about just how formidably accomplished he is, not only as a lyricist, but as a melodic and as a screamer. Just... Guitars, we're going to comment more on right now, actually. And it feels unfair because their guitarist co-writer has now left the band relatively late to pursue other musical endeavours, which the sarcastic person in me is like that. You literally have one that's just been fucking signed. So unless you're doing an Eloy and you're replacing Jim Root on guitar, I don't know why you've left at this time. It feels... But I don't know. They're a young band at the beginning of their creative endeavours. It sounds like they didn't have the greatest recording experience. We are said it. Maybe that led to it. It's swinging at the album. There's something comfortingly memorable and also something comfortingly recognizable, i.e. I kind of feel like I've heard this album before without actually hearing this album before, and once again, that whilst that might sound as though I'm punching down, I'm not. To me, I like my formative years of listening to metal, like the ones that got me into this were new metal. That was the period where I discovered like that. And I got really excited because new metal was a flash in the pan. Yes, it's still around, but it started to transition into new wave of American heavy metal and emo/screamo stuff, of which, removing the new wave of American heavy metal, Love Is Noise kind of occupy the screamo, emo, new metal group. That grouping, that kind of the 1997 to 2000 era of music, and they've kind of encapsulated a lot. Like, you listen to this, weirdly there's a lot of kind of a little bit of Blink-182 in here. We're gonna get to not in that take your pants off and jacket, but those kind of quieter moments that they like tracks like Holiday and like all those sorts of things where there are the more melodic stuff in there. But yeah, you listen to Jawbreaker and you're listening to Adrenaline era Deftones.
Yep.
In fact, I'm sure it's not a riff on that album, but it was a riff that was considered for that album and never made it. You listen to Soft Glow, you're listening to Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About Silence. It's there in it. Yes, they have a riff on it, but it's there. I picked out a huge Finch influence on this from What Is to Burn. There's a little bit of, and I'd be surprised if they've not listened to My Vitriol. It felt like that was kind of coursing through during the right part of the world for that. The strengths of the band lie in the songwriting, more importantly than anything else. These guys are great at independently crafting great songs, right?
Yeah.
So any single song on this album in isolation is fucking great. It has great movements, great composition, it's produced very well. The quality of the songs on the stream wasn't great, but they follow noticeable movements, have huge year one choruses. When they want to get heavy, the heavy bits are really fucking good. If they decide they don't want to do that in a track, it doesn't detrimentally impact. So there's not even a formula to the songs overall. They have songs where they will. Evelyn is a great example of that, where it exists almost in a full world of kind of quasi Smashing Pumpkins, My Vitriol, sort of alternative American British metal, rock, whatever you want to describe it. Like a sad feeder. It's kind of what it sounds like, and that's Feeder the band, not someone that overfeeds a partner because they get off on it. Like that kind of level. When they want to get heavy, like tracks like Jawbreaker, I'll give you that. Or even Soft Glow, which was the track we first blast beats and fucking blackened screams at the end. So it's like no shortage of that. So like all those tracks in isolation, brilliant. As an album, it lacks the cohesion that the overall independent songs have. I kind of felt like at times it was kind of not mumbling, but more meandering through a little bit of an identity crisis. And if this has been recorded or crafted over a 3-year period, I kind of understand why I'm picking that up. It feels like we're like certain parts of the album are being recorded or encapsulated at certain more prominent parts. But we need to get it out on an album, so they've been brought in without a kind of over. And I'm an albums guy. I stress this. To me, the flow of an album is almost as important as the music on it. And this, whilst it never gave me any whiplash, there are moments where a track coming up like that's not where I personally would have went on the next song. And that got a bit not jarring, but like maybe. They're a young group, and over time that will be refined. We've just reviewed an album from a band that had been on the go 50 years, and I was literally, my thing on that is it just felt effortless. You know what I mean? It felt like the flow of the album was almost, it was muscle memory. This one, it kind of felt like a stretch at times to certain things. Vocally, this is where the album fucking shines. Like really, really shines. I think his tone is incredible, and it's incredible, malleable, and versatile in a way which just makes me happy. The screaming stuff is really fucking good, but it's never overused. And there are moments even where I was like that, you could go heavier, but actually I really like the melody here. I'm glad you didn't, which is trapping a lot of younger bands do early on, where they want to release the heaviest thing ever because they never know if they're going to get another album out or what they expect here. He's really, 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 really good singer. Lyrically, I love the vocals. It exists in a kind of 80s new wave world where like everything is slightly esoteric and, you know, like it more captures a vibe and an emotion without necessarily fully making sense. Like I know the words, I know what, but the emotion behind it makes it make sense. Is all the way through here. Production, notwithstanding the stream we got, going off the 5 tracks that I have on my pre-release, is fucking great as well. It's modern, bright, and fresh, vibrant. You pick out absolutely everything. And there are standout tracks for me, though. The singles are fucking great for sure. If you're not listening to Soft Glow or Jawbreaker, it gives you a really good idea of the heavier aspects. The band never really go as heavy as either one of those songs, nor do they need to. If you want tracks that are a bit more in the kind of 90s alternative, opening track Devotion, Ammonia, or even Sunshine are tracks that allow kind of a little bit more of nuance and a little bit more of that alt vibe to work their way through. They have moments which span more into a little bit of spoken word or quieter. Mist and Ascending, the closing 2 tracks, definitely lean into that for sure. So there's plenty to like in here. And riff-wise, like I mentioned, I'm praising a guitarist who's not in the band anymore, but he shows a level of dexterity and playing that really accommodates all those. Certainly a guitarist who wears his influences, like I say, on his sleeve. My biggest gripe about it is at the end of it, I don't know if I fully know what Love Is Noise sound actually is as a band overall. I can very clearly point to their influences and I can pick them out on the songs, but I kind of feel this is almost as, and I mean this with the greatest respect, if you went into my teenage bedroom back in like 1998, 1999, I was one for cutting out and creating collages of my favourite bands on a bit of paper, and I would stick all those things, and that's kind of what the album is. It's almost verbatim a collage you would have seen on my bedroom wall circa 2004, 2005. And all those things look different, but they're all on the same page because I like them. It's like staring at your movie collection or CD collection, and the band's connective tissue is you. And I kind of feel like the song's connective tissue is the band's love of the influences they bring to it, without necessarily being the cohesive sound that is clearly there. In there, it's just something I wish they'd settle on a little bit more. So I might sound like I'm coming down negatively at the end, but it's only because everything on this album is so well put together that it just needs a step back, and it just needs a look about flow, sound, style, and cohesion, and a little bit more of them. I think it's there vocally. I wouldn't say it's not. I actually think, interestingly enough, if the guitarist is left, the guitar work in it was more where I was leaning towards that's a Deftones riff, that's a Glassjaw riff, that sort of thing. So I wonder if come the next release, which they're on their debut, and I know I'm thinking 5 steps ahead, but I wonder if that smooths out a little bit more.
I don't know. I mean, Cam, the vocalist, also plays guitar on the album, so
it'd be interesting to know if he's the guy doing the new metal stuff or if he's the guy doing the alternative stuff, because there's a switch there, clearly, and that's why you're almost getting a 1 for you, 1 for me ratio on it. And I like, there's more research that has to happen, potentially a conversation down the road. I think they have, of all the British bands I've heard in recent memory, I think they're the one that potentially has huge, and when I say huge potential, I don't mean like they're going to make it on a download. I mean as in, like, with the right movements, they could like be future main stage download. Like that's how much I feel like they're not far off the mark of being something that will have so much cross-market appeal it's going to be undeniable. I just don't feel they're... All the words sound horrible. They're not mature enough yet. They're still relatively immature in their musical... Not even composition. It's just the way the album's put together. To me, it's almost a trade-off. Every song's a trade-off to the following trade-off. And that, whilst on a pre-release, are how modern day... these kids these days with their iPhones, how maybe other people listen to music now, which is more for grab your favourite songs for a playlist. It's not how I listen to music. I listen to music for albums, and the flow on this one is off. In my taste, always preface it. Everything you're hearing is my opinion. I'm excited for them. I would love to see them live again and see what that time away since we last saw them has impacted there, but... I don't think they're far from greatness at all. I just think there's a meander on this one, which loses a little bit of the focus overall in the release. Okay. Curious, like we both have reacted and had relatively the same opinions to all the singles released. We both saw them live. Neither one of us could remember seeing them live. But this has been on our 2025 release schedule. This has been one of the albums that we've been like, we're getting a Love Is Noise album. Yep. How far am I off the mark from how you feel on this?
Not far at all, Duncan, to be honest. I think like in terms of the mix of like genres or styles, this is not a blend that I haven't, heard before. Love Is Noise definitely, as you said, wear a lot of influences on their sleeve. and you'll hear those comparisons like throughout this record. But what I did like was that there's a few kind of some more kind of like British influences on this that you maybe wouldn't hear in the sound of their like US equivalents. So although it's like familiar in a lot of places, there were little moments where I was like, all right, okay, that little sound or that little idea I wasn't totally expecting. However, what I would say is a real highlight on this release is the songwriting for me. That like I feel like Cam and the former guitarist Tom clearly have a talent for creating really like interesting arrangements and really cool compositional ideas. And that
chord structures are really fucking great. Like
Yeah,
they throw like a minor chord in a bit where I'm like that. Oh, I just go like, marry me.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. It was something that really stood out for me on this this debut was just how accomplished some of the songs are. And I know like these guys have been in bands before, but to be fair, like Cam was the drummer in Lotus Eater. Okay, so he's now fronting Love Is Noise. All right, and Lotus Eater was like an entirely different sound. So it is a bit of a change. And I think they've done like a really good job as musicians and songwriters on this release to make it sound so like accomplished at such an early stage of like the band's career. Like yourself, it's not perfect. I do have issues with this, but first I'm going to get into the stuff that I really enjoyed about the album first. As a whole, vocally, it's fantastic. Like Cam has a voice that is just a pleasure to listen to. Like it's got a really warm and really rich tone. He's got range, but he's got depth as well when he needs to dig deep and get really intimate on the album. His melodies, particularly around the choruses, are stunning on this. Like there's some massive hooks on this album. Soft Glow is like one of the best vocal takes like I've heard in a long time. The choice of melody is just on point. It's memorable. It has intensity, it's varied, but it also feels genuine as well. You can hear like that kind of passion in his delivery. It's an absolute banger of a track. Like, as you said, there's even blast beats included in the track as well. But and what I would say is that the run of like Devotion into Soft Glow and Take 1 Minute is killer. Like that, as album openings go, it's super strong. The bass work on Take a Minute is fucking brilliant. Like just he is taking that bass for a walk. And it did remind me a lot of like kind of old Glassjaw, the way that the bassist used to kind of go a bit more kind of like off piece with stuff. And the closing section and chorus of that track is just like all the chaos and hooks kind of rolled into one together. And it's kind of like they follow up with Jawbreaker, which is like another one of the singles. And like you said, very like 90s era Deftones. But once again, it's compounded with another massive chorus, which will have you singing along. It's a kind of short and sweet track, but it opens the door for another side of the band, which sees them reaching into some kind of softer influences. I was getting bits of like Radiohead, a little bit like My Bloody Valentine as well. It's kind of like it's like shoegazy, but there's like a dash of indie. There's a little bits of like kind of Britpop coming through as well. Just like big lush atmosphere on those tracks. Evelyn and It Hurts to Know You're There are like a really cool combo in the middle of the album. Perfectly placed just to like kind of bring the intensity down for a couple of tracks, and then like the title track comes in after that and gives the a little bit more of a boost on the heavier guitars, which are a wee bit more kind of like more modern era Deftones sound.
100%, yeah.
For me, like my kind of main kind of gripe of the album is the kind of back end of it. In particular, the kind of last 4 songs in the album, I felt like we're sitting in a very similar sound and a very similar tempo and rhythm. And yeah, they bring in some nice electronics and some synths to add a bit more texture and layers. And the choruses are good. Like Sunshine is a great melody on it. But I did find it started to become a little bit repetitive for me. I think the ordering of the tracks on the album was maybe a little bit off. I would have liked the album to maybe have a little bit more fire towards the end, like we got in the beginning, or something a little bit more left field. But I felt like the last section of the album was just kind of simmering for a bit, and then the closer, Ascending, it gets like slightly more kind of heated in the guitars on the closing track. That being said, I think from the singles they've released, that I've listened to on like Spotify and Bandcamp, the production of the album sounds great. Like I think the fact they've recorded this with more of a kind of like live band kind of feel, I think it's great. I think it really works on the album. There's nothing worse than music that's like been super edited and trimmed.
Yeah.
It kind of removes the life from it, and this doesn't have that issue. It has a really good feel to it. The recording has character, and you do get that kind of live feel, even from like the first couple of seconds of the album where you hear them walking into the room, flicking the switch on the amp, and you get that kind of bit of feedback. So I felt like on that front, it's engineered very well. Like the album sounds really nice, very warm and huge sounding. The guitar tone is really lush. I thought that was excellent. For me though, I felt like the biggest issue the album had was the ordering of it was a little bit weird. The last part of the album just kind of felt a little bit, it was kind of flat for a while. And I feel like I need more personality from them.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of influences on here. You'll hear them throughout the album. You'll be picking stuff out that will remind you of. I just want to hear a bit more of Love Is Noise going forward. I feel like I still want to hear those styles and genres they're blending, but I feel like they could put more of their own stamp on it going forward. But in terms of a kind of debut, there's like huge potential here. Like I feel
they're on the best label to foster that. You know what I mean? Central Media is going to do huge things. It's going to give them profile. What I think they need to do is just rest in a little bit. Understand that you don't just get signed to Central Media, so you are good.
Yeah.
And just lean a little bit more into that. And I think as listeners and spectators from afar, they are like to me like one of these ones where I'm like that. Yeah, we'll see where we are in 3 years' time, and I bet you I'm right. I bet you they're huge. So
yeah, I'm also interested to hear what happens next with the kind of shifting of the band's lineup and co-founders and writing partners. That's going to change. So I'm interested to hear what that does to their sound on the next release as well.
It's a double-edged sword. Sometimes it has an effect in that you find that genuinely half the sound is gone.
Yeah.
We talk about it all the time. It's weird where you hear bands and you're like Lamb of God to me when I was listening, like a big fan of Lamb of God, but like when their drummer left, I was like, oh right, that should be fine. And then the next album coming, I was like, oh, like you didn't like, you always thought the drummer was great, but you didn't realize how much the personality on that instrument like made the sound. And you don't know from this point of view with Love Is Noise how much that, but then again, it also opens the door to other writing partners. And the one thing is, this guy can fucking sing. Yeah. So we are in a position where from a versatile perspective, this could go anywhere, and I think it would probably fucking work. Yeah. So
okay, final thing, scores for the debut from Love Is Noise. What you scored in this album?
I'm coming in at a 4. Like I say, singles in isolation, fucking great.
Yep.
Certain tracks together, great. I don't have any one song that I dislike at all. The album to me is just a little bit off, and as a result, the way I consume music is fully in an album length. To me, it just the ordering at times is a bit muddled, and overall, I still don't know if I know fully what the band's sound is. Don't think I'm far from it, and I do expect great things from them, but a 4 feels fair from me.
Yeah, we are
twinning up night, man. We're
again.
4 for 4.
Yeah, 4 out of 5 for me as well. All the kind of elements are here. Yeah. The songwriting is more than good enough to take them to that next level. On this album, I feel like it's like almost kind of like 3/4 there, where they've got a lot of really cool elements. A lot of the songs are real highlights on the album, and then there's parts of it where it just kind of didn't work for me. But if there's a band I feel have a 5-star album in them, it's this band.
This one.
Yeah. So I won't be surprised if they do come back, even bigger and better on the next one. Yes, so it's a 45 from me. Love is Noise, To Live in a Different Way, out on February 14th via Century Media Records. Links below to the band, Bandcamp, all that sort of stuff. Check it out, have a listen, see what you think. That's the review. Thanks for checking out. We'll be back with another review very soon. But until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.